Actually just won the best marketer on LinkedIn for the APAC region.
The next guest
which is
an entrepreneur that has been disrupting the lead generation industry through the world's largest
is an entrepreneur disrupting the way businesses generate leads online.
Joined by marketing consultant Nathaniel Bibby of Bibby Consulting Group. Nathaniel actually just won the best marketer on LinkedIn for the APAC.
Social media marketing award last year.
Have you ever felt like LinkedIn is working against you? No matter what you try, your LinkedIn posts are just falling flat. You notice other people getting loads of views. Why isn't it working for you? You put in the work, clean formatting, great insights, perfect grammar, you hit publish, and then you wait and nothing. A few likes, maybe a comment or two, no leads, no momentum. I know it too well because I've been there, I'm afraid. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Monday Night Live. I know what it's like. You feel like you're doing everything right, but you're not getting anywhere. It's frustrating because it's time consuming, right? Weeks and months can go by and you have a business to run. So if something's not working, you've got to get rid of it. Then the story becomes LinkedIn doesn't work and all those guys are using engagement pods. It can't be real. They're faking it. Social media is a waste of time. But the truth is they gave up, which I understand. I considered giving up plenty of times. In fact, I took a 1.5 year hiatus when my daughter was born. I've just got some feedback here in the chat saying switch your microphone. Is the audio not working very well, guys? Let's get these technical issues. Oh, thanks for pointing that out. You're absolutely spot on there. Let me know if that's better. Thanks, Chris. Now, have you ever tried playing golf? You know, if you have, like you'll know, the slightest adjustment in your swing can mean the difference between sending the ball off into the trees and driving it perfectly down the green. Well, it's the same with social media because often it's the smallest changes that yield the biggest results. Thanks, Belinda. Appreciate you. Good on you guys. We'll continue. So it's a bit like golf. When your business isn't going according to plan, your brain keeps telling you that nothing's working and it can feel like you're a million miles away from where you want to be. But the truth is it only takes a few small changes. And this is true at every level, whether you're just starting out and you're getting 0 results or you're getting hundreds of leads per month. There's always another level you can get to. Does that make sense? Thanks for the feedback, guys. I was on the wrong microphone. I just got a standing desk, by the way. It's my new setup, so we're trying something new tonight. Look, that's why we're here tonight, to break through to another level. Welcome to Monday Night Live, your weekly dose of cutting-edge LinkedIn insights and marketing strategies to grow your business. I'm Nathaniel Bibby. If you haven't come across me before, I'm the founder of Bibby Media Group, Australia's leading LinkedIn training and marketing agency. We've helped generate over $500 million in sales for our clients. That's $500 million with a B. And tonight, I'm going to lift the hood on what's working right now on LinkedIn. So drop in the chat, say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Monday Night Live is working a little bit different now. I'm doing one huge episode a month because it's very hard to promote weekly. And then there's 3 in between, which are really for my core audience. And this is one of those episodes. Doesn't mean it's any less valuable. This is probably one of the most valuable lives that I've done so far, I think. I've got 15 actionable tips for you to implement that are going to increase your engagement. They're going to hack the LinkedIn algorithm. So I'm looking forward to, there we go. Good to see you all here. Now, back in the day when I started creating videos and sharing them online, I was posting for about 18 months and not getting results. And all my friends said, what are you posting those videos for? Nobody's watching them. And I didn't really have an answer because they were right. You know, something inside told me I was just a couple small tweaks away from making everything click. And it turns out I was right. And this was 12 years ago when I started posting on social media, not just LinkedIn, YouTube as well. And we'd never seen anything like this. As marketers, you know, social media is very different to old school marketing. I'm from the old school of direct response. You send out an offer, you measure conversion rates and track return on investment. I didn't understand how the LinkedIn algorithm actually worked. I realized that it's not me or my audience that actually decide what gets shown in the newsfeed. It's actually LinkedIn. Excuse me. So I remembered something that Tony Robbins told me once. He said, leaders don't just react, they anticipate. Because if you can anticipate trends before they happen, then of course you can prepare for it and move fast. And that's how you gain a massive edge in business. And I knew that if I was going to master this LinkedIn platform to grow my business, I had to not only understand how the algorithm works, but I needed to understand their business objectives, how they think, how they make decisions. You know, LinkedIn is a business and they have objectives, and all of their decisions are geared around meeting those objectives. So every time they update the algorithm, if you understand their objectives, you're not going to be blindsided, because they're changing all the time, right? Like every single day. And it's changing now more than ever. And if you understand their objectives, you can predict what changes are likely to be coming. And that's when you can really gain a competitive edge and move on new features and new updates before anyone else does. Here's the truth, right? The LinkedIn algorithm, despite what people say, it's not random. It rewards specific behaviors, and it's quite ruthless. It buries everything else. And just to make it more fun, it's constantly changing, as I just said. And I have to say, right now it is changing faster than ever, because people say to me that did my LinkedIn training 2 years ago that they've already done it. They don't need to do it. And I say, well, if it's my training or somebody else's, it doesn't really matter. If you did LinkedIn training 2 years ago, at least 30% of what you're doing is wrong. It's out of date. It doesn't work anymore. The platform's changed. And even what I'm suggesting now, I'm very clear to tell people, like, in 6 months, it's going to be a different story. Now, I've got a pretty good idea of where things are heading, but for right now, there's certain opportunities. And the algorithm's getting smarter, so it's getting harder to manipulate. So it's becoming more and more important to align your objectives with LinkedIn. Anyway, today I'm covering 15 research-based algorithm hacks that actually work on LinkedIn. Everything I share with you today is backed not only by the best research done about LinkedIn, because I read all the reports and I take note of the ones that actually matter, because there's a lot of rubbish out there, but it's also with my own experience. I've worked with thousands of clients across 70 different industries, helping them grow their business on LinkedIn. So if your posts aren't quite landing and you're not getting the advice you need, you're in the right place. If you just joined us, drop in the chat, say hello. Let me know that you're breathing. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And let me know what you think of my standing desk. And if you guys stick around till the end, I've actually got something special for you. It's called the LinkedIn Content Planner. A couple of you may already have this. It's a step-by-step tool. Shows you how to plan your entire LinkedIn strategy for the year, how to create 3 months worth of content in just a few hours, what to measure. It's got worksheets and templates that you can use to choose your content topics, choose your content pillars. So you're not waking up every day thinking, what shall I post today? So if you're using LinkedIn for business, you've got to be strategic about it. You need a plan. And I do this plan every year. And every year I actually update the templates and worksheets in there, so they're up to date with how LinkedIn's working at the moment. We've got Sydney in the house. Thanks, Chris. Paolo, welcome from South Africa. Mark Jeffrey in Duncraig. Around the corner. There we go. Good to see you guys popping up in the chat. Thanks for being here. If you want to get results, right? 1% of people aren't only 1% of people are posting, right? And about 10% of those are actually doing anything with that. If you want to be one of the 0.1% that makes millions of dollars on LinkedIn without spending $1 on ads, you must be proactively planning everything. You've got to be strategic about it. You've got to be focused. This is Monday Night Live. As always, there's no sales pitch, no clickbait nonsense. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Everything that I deliver is value. I don't have a course to sell you or anything like that. So all that I ask is that you show up, and some of you are going to take action and some of you won't, and that's on you. But we're going to get straight into the content now. the first thing we're going to talk about is writing. The caption part. Everyone spends so much time on the image or the video, but the caption is crucial on LinkedIn more than any other platform. It's not an afterthought. Your caption's what gets people's attention. And look, if the caption's not good, they're not going to watch your video. The image is really there to get people's attention, so they read the caption. And one thing that you've got to understand about writing captions on LinkedIn, you're actually writing 2 posts. Let me explain. You're writing 2 posts. The first post is only 3 lines long. And the second post is what comes after that. Now, why is that? Because when you look at a post in the newsfeed, when you're scrolling through the newsfeed, do you see the entire post? No. You see the first 3 lines. And then there's a little button that says see more. And so here's a bit of a wake-up call, and it's going to seem really obvious now that I've said it. But if your first 3 lines doesn't hook their attention and get their interest, the rest of your post does not matter. It won't even get seen, let alone read. I'm not saying it's not important. It is. But if you don't get the first 3 lines right, the rest of the post is not going to get read. People are scrolling LinkedIn on a mobile device when they're in the newsfeed 90% of the time, right? And during that time, they're on average, they're there for about 1 minute and 18 seconds, and they view about 14 posts. So you're competing with, another 13 posts during like just over 1 minute to get someone's attention. The chances are they're going to skip most of those posts. They're probably only going to look at 1, maybe 2 during that, just over 1 minute. Now, that's the average, by the way. People obviously will spend more time on there. They will spend less time. It depends if something gets their attention. LinkedIn's objective is to give its users a good experience. And so your objective needs to be exactly the same. So on a mobile device, if you look at a LinkedIn post on a mobile device, 1 line is about 8 or 9 words, per line. So if you go over 1 line, then, you've only really got 1 sentence in the hook. So what I suggest doing is you write a sentence that's 8 words or less as your main hook, then have a space, a line break, and then a smaller sentence as your 3rd line. And that needs to be enough to create curiosity to get people to click see more. How do you create curiosity? Well, you can tell people what the post is about. I mean, if you could summarize what your post is about in 8 words or less, that's probably going to be a great hook, right? Give me some other ideas in the comments. I know you guys are writing a lot of content. What other ideas do you have for hooks? Welcome, Sharon, and welcome, Christopher. I'm so glad to have you both here. Yeah, tell me some of the ideas that you have for hooks, guys. I know you guys have been practicing a lot of this. I mean, LinkedIn is just like any other business, right? They have a board, they have shareholders. Their objective is user retention and revenue growth. So the key to both of those objectives is average session time. So what is the average session time? Well, it's the average time that members on LinkedIn stay on LinkedIn. It's, used to be less than 1 minute. It's gone up a huge amount in recent years. How do you get people to stay on LinkedIn? Well, from LinkedIn's perspective, it's to serve them content that they want to consume. LinkedIn is looking at everything. They know exactly how long each person spends on your post, how much of your video they watch, how many minutes or seconds or whatever they spend reading your caption, how many times they refer back to your profile, how many times they look at the same post again. They measure everything. So in order for us to hack the algorithm, we have to align our objectives with LinkedIn. So the question becomes, how do I get people to stay on LinkedIn, more specifically on my LinkedIn content longer? And suddenly a lot of things that you weren't thinking about become obvious. So the first thing is simplify your writing. I heard Yasmin Alex say, good writing is clear writing, and I absolutely love it. Don't assume that your audience is going to take the time to read your long words, your industry jargon, and immediately understand what you're saying. Overanalyzing millions of posts on LinkedIn, the research clearly shows that the best performing posts are written at a 6th grade reading level. On average, those posts get 50% more engagement than any other post. So it's not the place to show off your writing, prowess or your vocabulary. Don't assume everyone's going to read your writing. In fact, assume the opposite. Assume nobody's going to read your writing. And that's When I sit down to write a post or a client's LinkedIn profile, I assume nobody's going to read this. And then I put a lot more thought into each sentence. And you might think, oh, Nathaniel spent half an hour writing 3 sentences. Yeah, it's a lot easier to write something that's long than it is to write something short and succinct, you know? So how do you make it so clear and simple and easy to understand that people get drawn in at a glance? Because if you make them think, you're going to lose them. That's how quick people's attention span is. So keep your sentences short and simple. If your sentence is long, turn it into 2 sentences. These are the sort of conversations I have with ChatGPT when I use it. It's like, you know, your sentences are way too, like, make the sentences shorter. Here's a LinkedIn post. How do we make this clearer and the sentences shorter? And how do we dumb down the English a little bit to a 6th grade level? Drop in the comments, guys. Let me know if you're getting value so far. Look, great writers, they spend hours cutting down their writing. They're not adding to it. I mean, it's all about, you know, the attention span, and the easier it is to consume, the longer people will stay. So the shorter it is, the longer people will stay, right? And so the longer people stay, the more the algorithm will push your content, right? So because LinkedIn cuts you off after 3 lines, don't waste it, you know? It's the same with when you're doing a video. Don't waste the first 3 seconds. You know, don't say, hey, LinkedIn. Start with, most people miss this, or here's why your post flopped. I mean, if you look at the post that I did today about this this event, you'll notice the hooks are straight into it. You know, what's the mistake or what's the value? You can ask a question. It's a great way to get people to comment below. But every single time when you write your hook, ask your question. Ask the question, you know, does this make sense as a 3-line post? Because if it doesn't, then people aren't going to read the rest of it, right? The next bit is a call to comment, right? So if you add a call to comment, so what's a call to comment, first of all? So we all know what a call to action is, right? It's like at the end of a sales page, if you're interested, you know, fill out the inquiry form and one of our sales guys will get in touch. So it's a call to action, but the action is comment. So at the end of the post, what we want people to do is comment on the post, because that's going to really amplify it with the algorithm. You're going to get visibility in the person's feed who commented on your post. You're going to get amplified on your, you know, with your audience as well. And you're starting a conversation. So if you start replying to those comments, before you know it, you know, you could have 10, 12 comments. So always reply to comments, first of all. That should be obvious. But with a call to comment, like if you have a post and you don't put a question at the end and give people a reason to comment, you won't get as much engagement. Like if you finish the post with, do you agree? You've automatically just got 50% more engagement because you've asked a question. People want to comment, they want to engage. Most of the time, they don't know what to write. So you just got to make it easy for them. What are the best questions to use as a call to comment? Well, the simpler, the better. The easier it is for somebody to type a response, the better. It's the same as when you're doing a LinkedIn poll. Like if a LinkedIn poll, you know, where you vote on 4 different results, they're a great way to get a lot of visibility very easily. But the reason that a lot of them flop is because they make them too complicated. You've got to make them really easy to answer. Yes, no, maybe. Make it really simple to understand. The same as with the writing style. So the call to comment is exactly the same. But give people a reason to speak, you know. And even better, reply to your own post with bonus insights. Like if you post something, there's no reason why you can't go into the comments and add some additional value. And that's where you can start more conversations. And if somebody's, you know, replies to that, reply to them, and then you're having this full community activity below your post. LinkedIn love that. They don't want to promote content where the person who posted the content is not replying to the people engaging with the content. They're not interested in those. I mean, celebrities get away with it, sure, but most of the time, if being active in the comments is what's going to make the difference within your network. All right. And so some of the pros, some of the LinkedIn creators that are getting, you know, thousands and thousands of comments, they will literally put 8 or 9 comments below each post about, you know, adding an additional tip or sharing where they're writing the post from or asking a question or talking about an event they got coming up in the comments section. You know, and each of those comments get a lot of views. There's actually analytics that LinkedIn have released now, And if you are doing lots of comments, you'll notice that it actually gets you a lot more exposure than posts alone, because ideally, like you probably be posting once a day maximum, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Whereas if you're commenting, I mean, there's no reason why you can't do 50 comments a day, depending on how much time you have, right? Thanks for the feedback, Sharon. Appreciate you. Okay, so we've talked about calls to comments. Now, we've covered some of the writing tips. Here's what else do you know when it gets, you need to know when it gets to the algorithm working in your favor. I mean, these are some of the hacks that, you know, when I was talking about things that might not be relevant in 6 months, these are the things that are working right now, and they may be different to what was working 6 months ago. So just keep that in mind, and that's the reason to keep coming back to Monday Night Live, because I can assure you, when things change, I will be telling everyone here. You guys are lucky. You get my content first. Like I will deliver things here first, and then, you know, decide whether or not I include it in some of the paid consulting I do for bigger companies. But they pay tens of thousands of dollars for this information, so you guys are fortunate to be getting it free. So when do you post? Like, let me know in the chat when you post, because a lot of people will say to me, you need to post at a specific time. And I tried this recently. I don't know if you saw me announce it, that I was going to post every day at 10 a.m. I did it for 3 weeks. I didn't notice any difference for me personally, because I have a global audience. I think this is one of the most important things you've got to keep in mind when you look at when you post. Where is your audience located? Wherever they're located, you want to do it in the morning there, right? You want to do it in the morning. Why? Because LinkedIn's pretty much dead at nighttime, and it's pretty quiet on the weekend. Friday afternoon till Monday morning, it's pretty dead. So, and it's quiet at nighttime, right? So I'll tell you a quick story. One of my first big interviews I did was with Dr. John DeMartini. Some of you may know him. He was a big idol of mine, and I just started my series LinkedIn Heroes. Just started doing video interviews, and last minute managed to get an interview with him in Melbourne while he was in town after his event. I was so excited. I went and did the interview, and we've done 3 interviews since then. But the next day, the next evening, my video editor gave me the edit back, right? And it was about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I was so excited that I published the interview. I posted it at that time of night. And I woke up the next morning, and it's like, it didn't get, you know, as many views as I thought it would at all. And I realized, oh, my audience is all in bed, right? And so you need engagement fast. And so if you're posting in the evening, you've got to wait like 10 hours until everyone wakes up before you get engagement. So the post's not going to do well. Because the next week, I actually reposted the same interview again. And I did it on Monday morning at 8 a.m. and it went bananas. So timing's very important. Monday to Thursday are the best days to post. The research says that midweek is the best. Tuesday and Wednesday, you get double the views. That's the research, right? Everybody's audience is different. So, you know, what works for me is not necessarily going to work for you. My audience now is a lot more global, and that's why 10 a.m., like, it does isolate some people. This is actually a good time, Monday Night Live. I do miss out on the US market. Like when I have US guests on, quite often they want to do it, you know, on a Tuesday morning or something, which is Monday evening for them. But in terms of the rest of the world, 6 p.m. Monday night works pretty well. Apologize to you guys in Melbourne and Sydney who have to tune in. Well, it's only 8 p.m. now with daylight saving. But test it all is what I'm saying, and work out what works for your audience. It's very important. And Friday and Saturday, by the way, they still work for light personal content. And the beauty of it is there's not much competition, because most people know this about LinkedIn, right? So if you do publish something on Saturday, because you'll notice I do it sometimes, there's not as much competition. Yes, there's not as many people on there, but, you know, it's worth testing out every now and then. One of the things that you've got to do on social media when you're posting, whether it's video or images or whatever, is show your face. And the amount of business owners that struggle with this, it's crazy. You know, they don't want to be on camera. Oh, you know, I don't want it to be about me. Can I post some pictures of other people? Look, the people in your network, the one thing that they've all got in common is they're connected to you. And besides, the whole point we're on social media is to build familiarity, to stay top of mind, to build trust. Just the fact that they see your face pop up every few days is enough to build familiarity and build trust. There's something to be said for it. You could literally be posting about things that aren't related to your business, but the fact that you're staying familiar with your target audience means you're more likely to be the provider that they buy from. Because if you've heard me speak before, you've heard me talk about the mere exposure effect, which says the more times that a brand is exposed to somebody, the more familiar it is, the more trusted it is. Therefore, the more likely somebody is going to choose that brand to buy from. So if I'm driving down the freeway and I see 5 Coca-Cola billboards and I don't see any billboards for Pepsi, all things being equal, I'm going to buy Coca-Cola because it's more familiar. If I see it in the shop, that's what I'm going to buy. It's not an opinion. That's what the data says, right? So show your face in your photographs. You'll get 60% more reach. That's what the research says. Now, any of you posting videos, let me know in the chat. Let's have a look here. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it, mate. Hey, let me know in the chat who's posting videos. I really want to know. I'm going to be looking at your profiles afterwards. Videos is something that's always changing. It's always changing. I've actually tested a few different things lately. It's very interesting. Like, I think that what I'm going to share with you right now is actually more likely to be the bigger picture approach when it comes to video. There's a huge trend online towards people consuming short form videos on mobile devices. LinkedIn is the next platform to go bananas. They almost, well, they were halfway there in December. Now they've removed the mobile feed. And look, they haven't announced anything about it. They haven't said about the changes. No staff member from LinkedIn has said anything about it. So I bet you my last bottom dollar that it's coming back. They've obviously want to change something, or they've had a bit of a glitch or something like that. There's no way they're not going to have a video mobile feed. With the amount of user attention on mobile video at the moment, look at TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. They've all done it. LinkedIn always follows when it comes to something like that. When Facebook launched Facebook Live, and Instagram did the same. You know, it was what? It was a year and a half later LinkedIn did it. That's how long it took. But when they did it, all of the earlier adopters got massive reach. I was getting tens of thousands of people just by pressing live with no promotion. It's the same thing with video. If you get ready for this mobile video feed thing, it's the biggest opportunity that we'll see in the next 5 years on LinkedIn. All right, let's see who's posting videos. Sharon, I highly recommend now is the right time to get started. Good on you, Belinda. Good idea, planning on looms. Well, you're going to need a huge library of content. So it's better to get started because this is something that you learn through practice, right? It's not something that you can really learn in a course or watching YouTube videos. You've got to practice and you've got to learn what your audience is interested in. Why is Gary Vaynerchuk one of the best content creators that's ever lived? Because he posts more than anyone else and he listens to the feedback. He looks at the comments, so he completely understands his audience. I looked at Alex Hormozi's, I'm doing a YouTube video on different celebrity entrepreneurs and what they're doing on LinkedIn. And Alex Hormozi was the most recent one. And I have a tool where I can organize all of his posts on LinkedIn by what got the most engagement. And if you do that, because he's posting every 4 hours, you'll see like the top 10 most engaged LinkedIn posts are exactly the same. Because he knows exactly what works. So when something works, he'll post it again in 3 or 4 months, pretty much word for word. He might change the first line. He'll change the image, but the wording is exactly the same. So he's learned what his audience is interested in by posting a lot, right? Now, when it comes to video, I suggest keeping it under 2 minutes. 30 to 90 seconds is the hot spot. Again, it comes down to making it easy for people to consume. So on average, after 10 seconds of your video playing, on average, across all videos, 50% of your audience have stopped watching in 10 seconds. So after a minute, it's more like 80%, right? So you've really got the odds stacked against you once you go over a minute. Doesn't mean you can't do it. Most videos are rubbish, right? But you do need to be really mindful of what you say in the first 10 seconds and the first minute. And anything in there that doesn't need to be in there, you got to cut it out. Most of the time, with videos, when we do create videos for clients, it's just cutting out all the gaps and the preamble and stuff that's not relevant to the person that's watching the video, right? So say it faster. Whatever you got to say it strong. And just like I told you with the LinkedIn captions, if it's too long, make it 2 videos. I'd much prefer you have 2 videos than one that's too long and nobody watches the second half. And if you want more visibility, get active in the comments. Spend 30 minutes in the comments before you post and after you post, and you'll get way more visibility. Do I do this every time? No. But that's the best practice, right? I think it's more important to be consistent than it is to do everything right all the time, because being consistent is difficult, right? But when I do spend 30 minutes in the comments, you know, not just on my post, but also going on other people's posts and commenting, I get way more visibility, way more profile views. I use a tool called Aware. You may remember I had a guest, Alex Boyd, on Monday Night Live, and he's the founder of Aware. And it's a tool where you can actually customize the feed. So if you want to comment on people's posts, you know, that are in the financial services industry, for example, you can create your own feed. So all you see are those types of posts. You can even create a feed from everybody that is in your community, the people that engage on your stuff and comment on all of theirs. So it's just a really valuable way, because you all know that when you spend time in the news feeds, you know, it's not always relevant, depends on how active you are. But what you'll find is the more active you are in the comments, the more the news feed will learn and serve you more relevant content. So LinkedIn just gets better and better, you know. When you are commenting, by the way, don't just write, you know, great post or thanks for sharing. Try and add some real value. Don't just write the post for don't just write the comment, I should say, for the person that wrote the post, right? Because it's public. Like, their audience is going to see your comment. Your audience will probably see the post in your comment. So what you want to do is actually provide some additional value. So if somebody says, you know, oh, this is 3 ways that you can grow your business on Google, you could say, oh, great post. I really like number 3. I would also add this idea. Or you could just go into point number 3 a bit more and just share your experience, but to add some value to the post. Or you can ask a question, just do something a little bit more than just a generic, you know, great post. You'll get visibility among their audience. And if you do it regularly with the same people, their audience will get to know who you are, and they'll start connecting with you. People want to be connected with people that are active in the comments. Think about it. Do LinkedIn pick up it's a duplicate? No, don't seem to. I mean, look, once it disappears out of the news feed, it's more or less, you know, it's pretty much gone into the ether. So no. But I would suggest just changing like the hook is probably the most important thing, or the image. I wouldn't do it exactly the same. I post the same videos after I wait about 6 months. I post the same videos. I can post the same images. If they worked really well, why not? I do change the caption around a little bit. But having said that, it's a good question, Belinda, because, you know, going back to the objectives of LinkedIn, there will come a time when they will notice that that's a duplicate. They're just not there yet, right? We've had it really good the last 11 years because the algorithm's been smart, but it's not been that smart. So we've been able to hack the algorithm, right? So anyway, my point is, if you changed it a little bit, you're aligning with LinkedIn's objectives, and you know, that's the best way to do it, I suggest. But that's totally fine with social media posts to upload the same stuff. Well done, Andrew. Good to see that people are seeing your videos. Look forward to checking them out. Cosmina, I will be definitely having a look at your videos. Well done. And I know Chris is active. Chris has been helping me with my videos lately, and that is why I've got this whole new setup here. He's been fantastic, by the way. Go connect with Chris. I'm going to do a post about the whole experience later, so I won't get distracted now. But he's amazing. There's a tool called Clio I wanted to tell you about. KLEO, right? And that's the tool I use to analyze Alex Hormozi's posts and see which one's got the most engagement. You can even use it to look at which post, like their oldest posts, and scroll down to their newest ones. So it's a great idea. Like if you want to see what's working in your industry, then go to somebody's profile who's already got the audience that you want, is already getting lots of engagement. Use Clio to see which post got the most comments, which post got the most likes, and then do something similar to that, but just put your own spin on it. Do it on your own profile, and see which ones work the best. And I wouldn't be surprised that if you did that, you'll find that the ones that are at the top showed your face. If it was a video, it was under 2 minutes. You posted, Monday to Thursday. A lot of these things you'll notice will be showing up in the posts that have got the most engagement. I mean, 9 times out of 10, when I look at new client's content and we do this exercise, the post at the top is like the 1 or 2 posts where they actually put their face in the post. So that's just proof, right? So what I'm talking about is don't just expect to come up with all the ideas. You can use what already works, okay? Also check out Magic Post, Super Grow. Those are great platforms for writing posts. They format it for you, so you can type it in and it formats for you. If you're using ChatGPT, you just need to be mindful of the prompts that you're using. Make sure you don't have those little space indents that it does, and all the different emojis. I mean, there's so many things that could go wrong. Like people who are using it, most of them, it's doing more harm than it is good, because people have just got a radar for what's been written by AI, and it's just, you want to make it human. The whole point of social media is personal branding, right? And it was bad before, because what people used to do when they're building a personal brand is they would look at somebody that had a personal brand that they want to emulate, and they would just copy what they said and copy what they did. And they're moving more away from being themselves, which is actually the objective. You build a personal brand by being yourself and unique and authentic, showing your personality, right? So with AI, it's made it even worse, because if you've got the mindset of, I'm just going to use this template, you're not going to be showing much of your personality, which means you're not actually building a personal brand. People aren't going to remember you. And if LinkedIn, decide not to give reach tomorrow, your audience is definitely not going to follow you to another platform. So how do you get people to remember you? Storytelling. Tell stories. Don't just share tips. Now, I mean, there's loads of examples that I could give you. I'll just keep it simple, really. I mean, I've got a whole Monday Night Live episode that I did a month ago on storytelling. But a quick story. So I was at the airport a couple of years ago, and I heard this guy yell out, Nathaniel, Nathaniel. And I turn around, and it's one of the security staff at the airport. And I thought, oh, shit, what have I done? And he comes over and he says, mate, I've been watching your videos. I really loved your story about how you started your business. I watched it 12 months ago and been watching your videos ever since. And I was like, holy shit, wow. No one's ever approached me at an airport about a post that was about facts, right? It's only when I share stories that people remember it. And so I've looked into this. I looked at the brain science and neuroscience behind storytelling. And it turns out that when you use stories, your posts are 22 times more memorable. 22 times. So you've got to use stories, right? And you can use ChatGPT to help you fine-tune them, but the stories have to come from your own experience. Now, if you're thinking about how to write stories, think about the person that you're dealing with, the target market, the ideal client, and think about where they're at. Because if you're an expert in a certain area, you weren't always that way, right? So you can remember what it felt like to not be that. If you can start a story that shares how you felt when you were, at that stage of your development, and then what the breakthrough moment was, what the epiphany was, and where you are now, that's going to build a lot of trust. And if I were you, I'd be repeating that story over and over again, because that airport story that I told you about, the story that I told him was exactly that. It was just like, I was, broke, and I used LinkedIn, and I got, managed to start a business, made this money and whatever. But it was relatable because, he could relate to, the start of the story. So very, very valuable. All right, guys, let's keep it moving. Optimize for mobile. So, the statistic says 65% of people are on a mobile device on LinkedIn. That's a bit misleading because when you're in the news feed, when people are in the news feed, that's where they're consuming content, right? So 65% of people overall are using mobile, but when it comes to just the news feed, it's over 90%. 90% of users are on their phone. So when people are on their laptops and desktops, they're doing other things like updating their profile, right? So your post has to be mobile friendly. You can't do big blocks of text. No, like if you have a big blocks of text, as soon as somebody loses their space, they're on to the next post. You can't afford for people to lose their space. That's why you see all these posts that are spaced out with a big, paragraph space in between each sentence to make it easy to read and make the sentences short and make it easy to read. So the English that we're using is not the English that we were taught at school. It's different. We're writing for LinkedIn. We're writing for the algorithm. And there's a balance, right? Because it can come across quite corny if you do this exactly like that. But it's something you've got to keep in mind. Write for mobile. Your images and your videos, look at the screen, right? It needs to fit the whole screen of a mobile device. It needs to be vertical. Does that make sense? Because then it'll take up the entire screen when they open it. And the videos need to be vertical. I tested a couple of videos lately that were square, which is how we used to do it. They didn't do too bad because the mobile feed's gone now. But trust me when I say it's coming back. Everything I create now is vertical. These were videos that I created previously. I thought I'll throw them up, see what happens. Vertical, vertical, vertical. Even your images, make them vertical and make sure the captions are written in a mobile-friendly way. Now, you need to be proactive when it comes to sending invitations and connection invitations. Generic invites won't work, right? The best way to get more people in your audience is actually to build your network, because if you have more first-degree connections, people are more likely to see your content. You'll have a wider second-degree network, which are people that have mutual connections with you. So you need to be proactive, because what most people do is they just accept whoever sends them a connection request, or they may reject some, but they're still being reactive because it's, whoever sends the invite to them. Every week you can send 100 invites out. Then you're growing your audience. Like when I started, I was targeting medical practitioners, and I would do this. I'd send at least 100 invites out every week. You can send more out if you get a good conversion rate. And it was only about a year, and I had more medical practices in my network than any other marketer in Australia. I was the perceived expert in that industry just because of my network. And so when I post content, it's more than likely those are the guys that are going to see it. Whereas if you have a broad network and everyone in it, then it's harder to be specific with your content because nobody knows exactly who it's written for, if that makes sense. And so to grow your network, you don't send generic invites. Now, look, there is data out there that says that a generic invite will get a similar conversion rate to one that's customized. And that is true, but just think about that for a second, because most people who customize their connection requests, they make it a sales. Like you've seen them, you get the invites. Most of them are rubbish. Most of them are selling stuff. Look, if you start pitching people in a connection request, of course it's going to get rejected. But it's the ones that are actually making it about the person they're sending it to them and making it personalized and focusing on building a relationship. Those ones are doing much better than a generic invite. So if you do need to upgrade from a free account to be able to do this, I think it's worth it. Make sure they're personalized. It takes you half an hour to do it. So be it, to send 10 connection requests. Because once you're connected, you're connected. Like getting somebody's email, everyone's like, oh, I've got an email database of 2,000 people. Every year, that email database shrinks because 30% of emails change every year. 30%, right? So you're losing 30% of your people in your email list. That doesn't happen on LinkedIn, because guess what? If they change their email address, they still keep the same LinkedIn account. Your LinkedIn network is way more valuable than an email database. Because once you're connected with them, you can contact them. They're more likely to see your content. I invested a lot in building my social database. It's way more important. I used to have an email database of 25,000 people. Yeah, I'd trade that for a social media LinkedIn database of 25,000 people in a heartbeat. I've got 40,000 people on there now. So use DMs for return on investment. Everyone thinks it's all about content. When they talk about LinkedIn, you go to these seminars, it's all about, how do you get more engagement? Likes don't pay the bills. They help because they position you as a thought leader and it gets you more exposure. And hopefully they turn into profile views, which is important for your content. But the return on investment, the money is made in the DMs, in the private messages. If you are doing all this activity and getting hundreds of thousands of people looking at your content and you aren't doing this step, you're probably not going to make a living out of LinkedIn. There are lots of people that I know who I've coached, some of them, I've interviewed some of them that have got hundreds of thousands of followers and get thousands of views and hundreds of comments every time they post that cannot pay their rent because they're not doing this step. Private messages. You're on LinkedIn to build relationships, right? And so the content and the news feed is like the cocktail party where you're networking and exchanging business cards. It's not until you give someone a call or send a text that the relationship moves to the next level. And that's what the private messages are, right? So comments are great because you get more exposure, but return on investment happens in the inbox. So what we want to do is take the conversation offline into a real relationship. So that's where your connections become relationships, conversations. If you think about LinkedIn as somewhere where you can create conversations, right? And then conversations create relationships, and relationships, if they're with the right people, will create sales. So bring the conversation offline, even if it's just a 15-minute phone conversation or a 15-minute Zoom call for you to get to know them and find out more about them. That's how you get return on investment. Okay. Now, finally, I want to mention about AI. Even if you're using AI, and I think AI is great, by the way, it can help you write, but it cannot be you. So either use it to start and get some ideas, then write the thing yourself, or just voice note it into AI, or get it to tidy up your stuff that you've already written. But always finish with your voice. Always go through and go, I wouldn't use that word to change it, because people will tell when something's not real, even if you can't. Authenticity cuts through. When I get out my phone and I just shoot from the hip and I write a post and just post it, and I don't use AI and the spelling's wrong or whatever, I don't do that all the time. But when I do it, it does really well because it's so authentic. Authenticity cuts through all the noise. Think about it. Everyone's using these tools now. Almost everyone, right? Let me know in the comments how many percentage of people you think are using AI on LinkedIn. It's over 50%, I can tell you that much. So if you want to stand out, be real, be authentic. Sure, you can use AI to make your thing a little bit better, but always have the last say and make it uniquely you. I hope that lands for everyone. Oh, all right, guys, we're nearly there. I just want to say as well, the newsfeed works on relevancy, not recency. Does that make sense? So it's not necessarily which post was done most recent, and it used to be like that 10 years ago. It's what's most relevant. So write for your audience, not yourself. So people will connect more with their problems than the solution, because sometimes, if they knew what the solution was, they would have solved the problem. So think about their problem and talk about the problem more than you do the solution. Most of the time, you'll see in my content, I'm actually talking about, oh, do you have this problem? This is the mistake to avoid. I'm starting with the problem because people will relate to it, and then I want to talk about their goals and how to help them achieve that. But you have to put your content in front of them in a way that they can consume. And if you just start talking about the solution, they don't even know that they need the solution yet. You need to cater for the widest portion of your audience as possible. They're higher up the customer journey, the awareness stage, I call it. And finally, be consistent. You got to be consistent. LinkedIn will show your stuff to the right people if it knows that it can rely on you. Relevance over recency every time. Use vertical video. LinkedIn is testing Reels. Vertical videos already getting 25% more engagement. And early adopters always wins. Like, this is the way to get an edge. So when I started doing these live streams, I was getting tens of thousands of people here. And same with articles when they were released, same with video when it was first released. It's about to happen with mobile video feeds. You want to make sure you're ready to go to be consistent. You need to create your videos, so start creating now so you're ready to go when the mobile video feed comes back. My view is it will. I'm not basing that on anything that's been released by LinkedIn, but I've been doing this a long time and that's what I think. So there you have it, my friends. Drop in the comments. Let me know if you'd like a copy of the LinkedIn Content Planner. Just type the word planner for me. 15 algorithm hacks that actually work, we've covered. So you've got the tools, you've got the strategy. All that's left is to take action, right? So this knowledge is absolutely useless without action, right? And most people, like I do LinkedIn training for companies all the time. No matter how good the training is, the portion that actually execute is very small. It comes about accountability. And, if you haven't invested in something like tonight, sometimes it's easy just to go, oh, that was cool, and just go back to your life. But unless you execute on this stuff, nothing's going to change. What I would like to do is hear from the people that do take action this week. So here's your homework, right? Is to put at least 2 of these 15 tips into practice this week. And let me know when you do it, right? And I want to share, some of those examples next week on Monday Night Live. And I'm going to start doing a bit more of that so I can give you some actionable tips to implement throughout the week. You've got to make a commitment, right, to execute on what you've learned. And I'm not here to tell you what's right for you, but if you're one of the few that's going to take action, that's my challenge. If you decide to accept the challenge, type accept into the comments right now, so I can check your progress in coming weeks. And make a commitment. Hold yourself accountable. Type accept if you are going to implement 2 of these 15 tips within the next week. And I'll keep an eye out for what you're doing. And then look, next week, the week after that, you could do another 2 tips. And then in 2 months, you'll have implemented every single suggestion that we've covered today. And if you make that commitment, you take that action, just watch what happens to your business. It's interesting what happens when you start taking action. Even just small movements every week can make a huge difference. All right. So thanks for being on Monday Night Live, guys. It's your turn. If you've made it this far, you're already in the top 1%. And if you're still here, you'd like a copy of the LinkedIn Content Planner that I've used to map out years of content in advance, type the word planner into the comments right now, and I'll get that over to you within 24 hours. Thanks for showing up. This is Monday Night Live. We do this every week. Same place, same time. And if you keep showing up, so will the results. Until next week, stay legendary.